Big, big decisions need to be made. There's reports coming out today on Roy Hodgson's future. Does he have one game left? Does he have more than one game? And also the potential replacements for Roy. As always, if you do enjoy this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe. If you're watching on replay, leave down your thoughts in the comment section down below. And it's going to be a big one because some of the names we mentioned, it's not the usual Steve Coopers and the Lopetegis. But let's get started with Palace news. It has been a while, people, but here we are again, Palace news. And funny enough, we're not going to be talking about transfer news. We're going to be talking about managerial news as the January window is approaching. As always, thanks to every single one of you that's joined us today, yesterday as well. It's been quite busy 2 days, and it's going to be busier, of course, with the window opening. We'll be on here trying to give you updates as it goes on, as well as transfer updates. Because remember, regardless of Hodgson, the January transfer window, it doesn't wait for you. The club needs to make decisions, and we do need more signings, so we'll keep you up to date with that. But in today's episode, it's all about Roy Hodgson. There's lots of different sources that's talking about him. I'm joined by AJ here. AJ, after the defeat yesterday, we've done, of course, the live match reaction together. How are you feeling, man? You got the new Palace top as well. I guess you got it for Christmas.
It's been a Merry Christmas, lads. You know that. But I'm done with Roy. That's it. Like, you know, it was quite nice. You know, I left work. I left for work this morning very early. Obviously, the days passed. I've checked my phone after work, and I'm seeing some names, and I'm seeing some serious names. However, track record of Mr. Steve Parish has never been renowned for doing the right decision, always, in terms of managerial appointments. But at this point, I can probably caveat or more importantly, justify an appointment of pretty much any of those names. Any one of those names you can put down, and I can probably find a reason why we should hire him over Roy. At the end of the day, I'm now at that stage where, as long as Roy goes, I don't really care. Like, I just don't care what I've got. He's done out
here. Yeah, and look, a lot of people are like that as well. And some of the names can be mentioned. Well, look, there's going to be the usual Lopetegis and the Steve Coopers that people expect. But interestingly, there's been a few other names. But in terms of Roy's job on the line, you said it yesterday as well that he should be gone as of now. I actually quickly want to mention this. What actually changes if we beat Brentford? Because I'm curious about that. As he hasn't been sacked right now, if we beat Brentford, are we back all of a sudden? I'm a bit confused on the matter with Roy's future. Because, yes, we gave him the Brentford job, but, I mean, what if Brentford is a one-off? And then we haven't got that many games left. We got, the Everton game in the Cup, and then we don't play Arsenal till later on in January. What do you think is the latest situation? Like, what do you think the club is actually trying to do? Because I don't really understand it. I think he should be gone now. I don't think anything's going to really change after the Brentford game. I just don't see it happening.
Do you know what? You pretty much highlighted it for me. I think the way I looked at it was, after the game, social media was half and half. So the ones that were still trying to stay loyal to Roy was essentially on the lines of, you know, if he doesn't beat Brentford. And the first thing that came to my mind is that, as a point, why would it matter? Why are we even giving him the opportunity to get him break? I don't want this man in charge of any more Palace games. That is it. And what, you know, we go into Brentford and the way we're playing, I mean, let's say we lose. In fact, let's say we win. Doesn't change
that's
much.
What I'm thinking about.
At the end of the day, reality of the situation is, we're in it's not even mediocrity, because mediocrity would have us mid-table. I've got Bournemouth man disrespecting me. Bournemouth man, you know, disrespecting me, telling me about, we're looking at Europe next year. So you're allowing these clubs that are far behind us in terms of their time of progression in the Premier League to overtake us and embarrass us. But more importantly, going back to the point is, we are 3 points above relegation. By this time next week, we could easily be sitting in that relegation zone. Unlikely, but it's very possible. And more importantly, we could be level on points with the relegation zone, more or less the goal difference and all the other factors I've not seen. But this is where we have to get serious now, because last season, when Vieira was in this predicament, which was, may I add, not as bad as it is now.
Yeah, I agree.
Steve
as well.
was already making changes in the background and doing whatever he was doing. Now, you have to show consistency. If you want me to take you seriously, show me levels of respect and show me because of consistency. The consistent thing for Steve Parish is Roy's not doing a job. So you got to kind of, we're a Premier League club and we're supposed to be a serious Premier League club. So at that point, if you are in danger of relegation based on the reason why he sacked Parish he sacked Vieira last season, his logic was, well, we were a bit too close to the relegation zone. Well, guess what, Mr. Parish? We're touching the relegation zone. Like, we are literally in such a dangerous and precarious situation right now. You've got to bring in a new manager. You've got to bring in a new manager that can maybe get 1 or 2 players in the door in January, and you got to do it now. We ain't got time to be waiting back and around, because at the end of the day, every point is vital right now. Because even if we turned it on and picked up a couple of wins here, there, and everywhere, it's not really going to do much to make our season finish higher than 15th, 14th, if we're lucky, by the way. I just think to myself, Roy is on this weird obsession with getting us into the Championship. It's almost like he's just going to relegate us and walk off into the sunset. And I don't think that's right. Pay the man off. Bring in a guy that's ambitious and serious. We're no longer in the kind of situation where we're looking at your Allardyces, your Pulises, your Mark Hughes, and your Alan Partridge. Those days are gone. There are different manager names on the table, and we've got a larger scope. The Premier League is a bigger product. We need to use that to our best of advantage and get a young, hungry manager in the door as soon as possible, and we can at least try and salvage what's left of our season.
Yeah, and I have to add, we're going to go through the reports in just a second, but this is the perfect time. If you were to get rid of a manager, this is the perfect time for multiple reasons. One, you got a January transfer window coming up. Of course, the manager doesn't have 100% of the say, but if it's not Hodgson, if it's the likes of Steve Cooper or Lopetegui, he might not want one of these players, or he might give his suggestions. So now's the perfect time. Another reason why, if you are going to sack a manager, why now would be the right time, or after the Brentford game, is the fact that we don't have that many games coming up. We've got Everton in the FA Cup, which I would like a good cup run, but it's unlikely right now. And then our next Premier League game after Brentford is against Arsenal on January the 20th. So there's a nice bit of gap and a break where you can take that break and you can work on your new team. We're not going to get this opportunity again. This is the moment. This is the part of the season where you have that little break. You take advantage, bring in another manager, and let that manager work with his new players before the Arsenal game. That's why, for 2 reasons, now would be the right time. But let's actually look at the sources and see what they're saying as well, because there has been a lot of news that's been coming out today. Let's start off with Ed Aarons, who's a very reputable Palace source. He said the following in the afternoon. He said that Lopetegui has been spotted at Selhurst Park in recent weeks and would be an experienced option, while Lille manager Paulo Fonseca and Oliver Glasner, which is interesting because Stan mentioned him yesterday, who has been out of work since leaving Frankfurt in the summer, both have their supporters in the Palace boardroom. It is understood that Parish would prefer to keep Hodgson until the end of the season, but is aware of growing frustration among supporters and could be forced to act if results do not improve. So we're gonna, I'm gonna tell all the news that's coming out, and then we'll discuss it individually. So that's from Ed Aarons. The manager mentioned Lopetegui, Fonseca, and Glasner, who's a manager that hasn't been mentioned before. Now let's move on to the Eagles beak. You have reliable sources as well, who's been reliable ever since the summer. I really like the Eagles beat personally. Their sources understand that Steve Cooper is the preferred candidate of Dougie Freedman. So it seems like Dougie Freedman wants Steve Cooper. However, it remains to be seen or not if the former Forest manager would be keen to get a managerial job, as he was just sacked recently. So Eagle Beak is saying Dougie Freedman prefers Steve Cooper, which is interesting, but we don't know if you'd be keen for another job right now, as he just recently got sacked. And lastly, from Jack Rosser, who also is a known journalist, he said Roy Hodgson's job is under pressure at Palace. Some at the club feel Brentford should be his last chance. Some at the club will look into that as well. Steve Cooper is a clear favourite should a change be made, but some are split. Now, let's start off with Roy in terms of his future. Then we're going to talk about the managers, because each source has bits and bobs that I want to talk about, which is interesting. We'll start off with Jack Rosser, because he talked about Jack Ross and Ed Aarons talked about, Roy Hodgson's future. Ed Aarons said that Parish would like to keep Hodgson till the end of the season, but due to the pressure from the fan base, you could be forced to make a move. And Jack Ross says that move might be the Brentford game. So it might be as close as the Brentford game. Look, I don't want to say positive, but in that way, AJ, at least we know that from these sources coming out the next day, that Palace are actually finally thinking of taking action. That's, I guess, the positive that's coming out of these news with Hodgson. And maybe he knows the pressure as well. So against Brentford, he might actually have to, go for it because it might be his last job.
Do you know what, right? I'm annoyed with that, right? I'll tell you why. The exact same thing on the post-match reaction show I spoke about yesterday is in relation. In fact, it's the mirror image of the same thing. We're being reactive rather than proactive. If we were proactive in the summer and got a manager that actually was a bit more competent, let's just call it that, and not even if we backed him as such, because, I would debate we did bring in players in the summer, and I think he didn't utilize the squad properly at all, as far as I'm concerned, or he hasn't utilized the squad at all. We've got a tremendous youth academy that is churning out really quality young men, and we have no idea if they can cack it at Premier League level because we have a manager that's not willing to utilize and use that. It's too late for me as far as the board's concerned, because now we're in this dire situation where there could have been games that we could have picked up points in, which we should have picked up points in, and we should have finished off certain opponents in certain games, and we just never got around to getting it done. If we had a right and a serious manager in place to do that, we would have been in a better position, right, than we are right now. We wouldn't have to be looking at our shoulders, considering taking trips to Plymouth and QPR next season.
Yeah. And that's why the move, but interesting, is coming from Ed Aarons that, well, not really a surprise, but Steve Parish would prefer Hodgson to stay until the summer, but he did also say that, there are growing concerns based on the supporters, and a force could be made if results do not improve. So I guess Parish doesn't want to sack him, which is quite obvious because he would have been sacked by now if he really did want to sack him, because the results, I said it yesterday, last time we won a game, 4th of November, where it's about to be 2 months if we don't beat Brentford. Last time we won our home game is in September. I don't even have to say what day. The fact that it's in September and we're going into January and we haven't won a home game says it all. So if he really wanted to sack Hodgson, he would have done it so far. Clearly he doesn't, and Ed Aarons reiterates that. But he does say that he might be forced to a change because of how the fan base are reacting, and the fact that we have to make noise for our chairman to realize that this is not going to work is a bit scary in the first place. Now let's talk about some of the names and let's look at Ed Aarons, what he said. Lopetegui, we've mentioned him before, AJ. Paulo Fonseca has been mentioned in the past, but interesting, Oliver Glasner, who used to be Frankfurt's manager. Do you see Palace? Of course, Steve Cooper, we'll talk about him as well because he's been reported by other sources that Palace will prefer him. But do you see Palace going for a manager that might not have Premier League experience? Because Lopetegui does, but is not that much. Is barely any. And Fonseca, Ed Aarons, Oliver Glasner, who used to be at Frankfurt. Do you see Palace making a move like that with the current situation we're in?
Do you know what? This is where I got to big up Stan, because obviously he name dropped my man 24 hours before Glasner. But it's quite interesting because I don't think we're a serious enough club to make that move. All three of those managers excite me instantly. Excite me and make me think it's a better brand of football. There's winners in there. There's trophy winners in there. There's experience in those names. Like, some of those guys have coached and potentially will go on and coach at the highest level. Every single one of those names is better than Hodgson. I don't even have to think about it. Why would I not want that? The issue I've got is I think for a fact they're going to want to bring in their own players. I've never, Glasner, I'm not very aware of in terms of what his transfer policy is. I'm not going to try and beg it and behave like I'm some Bundesliga connoisseur. But in logic terms, the man's won the Europa League in very recent times. Fonseca's done bits everywhere he's gone, and he's got experience, and he's very cultured in terms of what he's picked up and learned and improved where he's
football with the two managers that you met. Actually, let me not even talk about Glasner, but for Fonseca, from what I've read in the past, I need to read about Oliver Glasner, but it wouldn't be with Lopetegui. I'll be honest, and I'll say this now because I haven't really spoken about him. I have a concern personally. I know he's managed some big clubs, but even when we face him, in fact, Wolves FL, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Says Roy under pressure. Yeah, he is under pressure. But thank you so much for your super chat. When he was at Wolves for Lopetegui, personally, I just felt like his tactics weren't that great. Like I wasn't invested. Like you got results, but it was not the type of football that I prefer personally. But of course, Lopetegui sounds exciting by name, but the football that he does play is not what I like. It's a bit more defensive for my liking.
But you know, with Lopetegui, right? The thing is, we got to understand, my man's coached Spain and Real Madrid, and that wasn't a million years ago, by the way. That was literally in the past 4 or 5 years, and the only reason he lost the Spain job was because of the Real Madrid politics. On top of that, if my man's playing shit football and we're winning games and we're in the top 6, I mean, that's very ambitious, but even in the top 8 or the top 10, my mouth is shut, you know. My mouth is closed. I'm chill. I'm happy.
Yeah, 100%. That's the same with Roy as well. I'll take like 1 shot on target, 1 goal if it means we're 6th or 7th. Like, I'll take that. But then again, more time, AJ. We've been in the Premier League long enough to know that if you're going to play that type of football, it's just not going to work. Like, who do you see at the top playing that kind of football when it's working? Newcastle are not. Like, do you get it? Like all this teams, the reason why they're at the top.
Right. I'm gonna argue that one a little bit. Football, right, and styles of football go hand in hand and always go in cycles, right? So Ferguson had his time with Manchester United and dominated football through various different styles of play, right? And it wasn't particularly now that, you know, he did that. Then along comes Arsene Wenger and it's tiki-taka, passing the back of the net. Then you get Pep Guardiola, who does an advanced version of that with young, exciting young Spanish players and a little Argentinian brother called Lionel Messi, right? Then Jurgen Klopp comes along with Gegenpressing, where it is like, you are not getting this ball, or if you get this ball back, we are doing everything in our power to win it. Styles of football change, bro. The most important thing is it's a results business.
Yeah, 100% for me as well.
You see what I'm saying?
Again,
so, all right, yes, granted, I would love to watch clips of Eze and Elise twisting up 100 man and doing some South London pen football, but at the end of the day, right now, I'm too busy looking at that Premier League table and sweating because I just see a 3-point difference between us and Luton. Let us get over the line first, and then we can worry about this style of play later. Right now, we need to worry about the results. And if anything's proven, it's that it's a results business, especially in the Premier League. I don't care. At this point, I don't care. I've been wound up by the way that the management and the ownership and all the rest of it has been doing bits. As long as we get the results and the 3 points on us every Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, whatever it is, I couldn't care less if it's ugly football and we're doing a 1-0 every week, bro.
No. I agree with you. But more than often, we've seen it that if you do play negative football, it might work for a bit, but you kind of do get found out. It's not really sustainable, what I've noticed. Like, it's just not sustainable. You don't see the clubs at the top. Of course, they got better players, so they don't have to play negative football, but you don't really see anyone going to the top by playing like that. Atletico Madrid, to be fair, in the past, they have, Simeone, been very solid defensively, has worked, but that's a different league, different competition in comparison to Premier League and how the Premier League's operating. So let's talk about, you did mention that you do want points, etc. But for me, I would like, you know, as I said, I'm not the Lopetegui personally, I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not. But from the 3 that's been mentioned from Ed Aarons, Fonseca, Glasner, and also Lopetegui, I think they all would require backing. That's why, for me personally, I just don't see that happening. However, the Eagles, Beak, who have their sources, apparently have said that, you know, Doug Friedman prefers Steve Cooper. So Steve Cooper has been a manager that's been linked for a while, but according to reports, we don't know yet if he wants to get back into management after Stephen Forrest. When you're talking about experience and when you talk about results, do you think Steve Cooper then makes more sense than the other names that's been mentioned? Some of these managers that don't have Premier League experience, due to him keeping Forrest up last year as well.
Yeah, do you know, I don't hate the idea of getting Steve Cooper at all. You know, it's not my favorite choice. It's not my first choice, but it's not. I don't hate the idea. He's coached a lot of young English talent. He's won things at under 17s, under 18s World Cup. He's brought Forest from pretty much one side of the championship to the other, which anybody that's been in the championship or watched championship football knows is no joke. The man knows his football. Like he's not a bum. Like he's not an accidental success. Like he's done bits, and I think to write him off because it's gone wrong at Forest, where allegedly he didn't even get the players he wanted, I think that would be very, very disrespectful. I know a lot of people like to take the piss in terms of, you know, how he looks in terms of his visual layout of things and that, which I'm also not a fan of, but, you know, it's banter in it for certain people. But in all fairness, I like him. I think he's a decent manager. And you know what? He'd been improving on Hodgson as far as I'm concerned. I think he would, A, use the kids. B, I think like he'd work with a budget as long as obviously he could conjure up enough results to kind of show some progressive football. And I think he deserves a chance in the Premier League. I think he's a decent youngish English manager in terms of the management setup. You know, it's time for the next generation of English managers to come through. And if we've got a chance to get one in Steve Cooper, take him. Why not?
Yeah. Look, we're gonna answer some questions. So if you have any questions, just put a Q and a dot right before the question. We'll pin it and we'll answer it in just a few moments' time. If you're just joining us now, if you're enjoying this, if you could leave a like, that'll be much appreciated. It only takes a second of your time and helps the algorithm. And subscribe if you're new here to not miss out on future Palace episodes. Big Tigger says Hodgson is very much like Conte. And also I'll put this out from Looney as well. If Lopetegui has been around Sellers, then it is likely Parish is considering him, knowing he will need to back him. And you know what? The quotes from three different sources, from the Eagles beat, from Jack Rosser, and also Ed Aarons. It does feel like, especially with Jack Ross's one, Steve Cooper, he mentioned that Steve Cooper is a clear favorite. Should a change be made, but some are split. It's not like everyone at the club is keen on Cooper, but then again, it says some are split. Now, who is the some? It seemed like Doug Friedman wants Steve Cooper, based on reports. Steve Parish is a fan. Does that mean Techstar doesn't want Steve Cooper at Palace? Like, this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets complex with our ownership model, because we don't know who the some are. Because according to the Eagles' beak, if we add 2 and 2 together, Doug Friedman is he prefers Steve Cooper, and also Steve Parish seems like he's been a fan of Cooper as well, because we've been rumored with Cooper in the past. So does it make it a bit more complex, AJ, if there is that split?
And based on the Cooper, you had 2 points there that my brain was doing overtime thinking about. I think first things first, I don't know what John Textor knows about football outside of Crystal Palace and obviously his investments rather than the football clubs he owns. I think those are two contrasting different things. If I went up to John Textor right now and told him to name me 5 current Premier League managers, I don't even know if he could. I have no idea what his ball knowledge is like that. You know, he seems that he's more invested.
He has the interest.
He probably wouldn't
all these football clubs.
Whatever, bro. He wouldn't be able to. Not without maybe his son or one of his kids or something.
John Textor has better ball knowledge than you, bro. You just don't know. You just don't know about it yet, man.
Is there an echo in here? You say that to me. You must be mad, bro. You're insane. This guy does not speak to me, bro. But in all fairness, you're an idiot. In all fairness, though, I think, he doesn't have the golden share anyway. So, Steve gets the say regardless, apparently. So that doesn't really make much of a difference. But John Textor just seems too invested in his other projects to even entertain us. When was the last time John Textor was seen at Sellers Park or any of his representatives? Apparently, him and Steve Parish aren't in talking terms.
Yeah, they're not.
Has he injected any money into the club recently? I have no idea. So I wouldn't really be fussed about John Textor's decision in this one, because I'm just not convinced. Not that he doesn't care, but he doesn't have that much of a sort of switch on that element, if that makes sense. So I'm not really fussed about that. I think, it's just weird that this obsession with keeping hold of Roy and Steve Parish almost scared to sort of pick up the phone to him and have a word. It's very peculiar, because when all this Vieira stuff came out, it was like, oh, he's not answering Steve Parrish's calls, and this isn't going on, and they're going on, but apparently he's scared to go on the phone to Roy and turn around and have a word. I don't get it. Right. That was my second point. I find it quite interesting that three pretty highly respected journalists in the Palace scene have got three different stories. What that says to me is nobody knows what the hell's going on. And they're just playing
split. It just shows the split. Of course, we don't know the sources directly.
Nobody knows what's going on. And what's going to happen is, if we know, if you're sharp enough to kind of watch transfer rumors, football rumors, and all that stuff over the years, it's just a case of playing cat and mouse, and at the same time, just if we guess or kind of throw out 3 or 4 names, I can be the first exclusive. That's really it. Unless somebody like DiMarzio or Fabrizio Morano drops it, it's not really considered fact, and even they get it wrong sometimes. So I think they're just playing the guessing game until like somebody sort of turns around.
Doing a guessing game though. I don't think so. I don't think Ed Aarons does a guessing game. I think he's reputable.
Yeah, I'll give you that. That's respectable.
These are names that are. There's just not any other names, of course. For some time we talk about transfer news, there are some names that are not as reputable as others, but these are pretty good sources that have come out today, and they have similarities across them. 2 of them does mention Steve Cooper, and we've of course known about Cooper. I think it's a case of different sources, different information from maybe different camps, and of course one of them says that there is a split. So it can depend on who the sources are, right? We just don't know. We don't know.
But then you got to look at that even from a, because do you mean to tell me there are, because you named what, 3 different sources there at the beginning of the show, 3 different articles, right? So do you mean to tell me there are 3 different sources close enough to boardroom level at Crystal Palace Football Club that has the insight as A, if Roy's going to get sacked, and B, whether who the new manager preferential is?
Well, two of them say the same thing anyways. They said that Steve Cooper.
But then one of them dropped 3 names, and it's like, oh, well, these are the 3 names.
One of them dropped 3 names.
It's like they're just random names with a dartboard and just flinging it.
I don't think he dropped random names with a dartboard. I'll bring out the article as well, but I'm pretty sure Steve Cooper was mentioned as well. So Steve Cooper has been mentioned across all 3. So that's not a different thing. It's just considering other managers as well, because I mean, we'll see how competent we are. But if you're a Premier League club, you're not going to have one manager on your list. You're going to have other names as well. So these other names have been considered, and he just probably mentioned it. But the one thing that is clear, Steve Cooper is across all 3, and Steve Cooper has been the main name. And the sources are saying that Steve Cooper is a favourite. So, of course, different sources might know a bit more information than other sources, depending on the journal, who they're talking to, etc. So Ed Aarons, he knows his Palace stuff, and clearly these are the other names that could be potentially considered. Maybe if Cooper isn't in line. So I think there are similarities across all 3 of them. But yeah, let me go through some of the questions and we're going to wrap it up as well. Red Bull saying, question, do you think the board are looking at Cooper to prepare going to the Championship? I don't know. I don't think that's the reason. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just to keep us up. I think they just rate him as a manager. I don't think it is anything to do with like relegation, potential relegation. There's long enough to say.
As much as I talk about, we are in a serious, dangerous, and precarious decision, I don't think we should ever really be. Obviously, there's some things that are out of our hands, but we should really never be in a position, or no Premier League club should ever be in a position where they are prepping for the Championship. The financial devastation. Exactly. The financial, no, not for me. I'm not having that. Not one bit. Yeah. And Steve Parrish is no idiot, knows how much money's on the line and how much income's on the line. So if he wants to line his pocket and keep his outrageous salary, then he's gonna have to pull his finger out and do something.
But then again, I have to say there is that maybe in the back of their minds. Of course, we don't know, but it might be a consideration as well. Like maybe, but I just don't see them thinking about the Championship right now. I think they're all thinking about the stay, and I think they believe that Steve Cooper can keep us up, not get us relegated and then maybe get us promoted. Tim has a question saying, do you think we'll get him the players to play that he wants? The man use the wing backs. Who are we talking about? We're talking about in general. I mean,
he's talking about Cooper,
progressive manager. AJ, do you think fullbacks is one area that we have to be looking at? Because Mitchell I think can do it, but right back, that has been
we needed fullbacks for years. It's not going to happen. But it's not going to happen. We've needed fullbacks for years, mate. How long did Wan-Bissaka go? Renan, Holt, Mitchell. We got very, very lucky. We got very, very lucky with Mitchell, and we sold Wan-Bissaka because he was an accidental success. We've needed fullbacks for years, mate. I think that it's quite interesting you mentioned that, because obviously Cooper has done that at Forest, but actually at the same time, Cooper's been able to adjust his system at Forest to have your Hudson Odois and he gives Whites and all the rest of it that kind of can play the right midfield and traditional left midfield roles, i.e. even a winger progressively as well. So I'm not worried about that. I reckon he would change. I reckon Cooper walks in the door, sees what he's got to work with, see what he can potentially get through the door, and then I can picture him going from there. That's my opinion, by the way. That's not facts. That's my opinion.
Okay. Let me go through the next question. I've lost a question. 2 seconds. Here we go. From Ippo. Ippo King. He said, would you take a win on Saturday and Hodgson stays beyond January, or take a loss and Hodgson gets sacked after? Now, I know this is when some people talk about, oh, how can you say you would want a loss, etc. But for me, if I'm logically speaking and looking at how the season's gone so far, for me, a win against Brentford, realistically, is not going to change much. I mean, it isn't. That's how the season's gone. I just don't see it changing. So if it's a case that the inevitable is going to happen if we lose against Brentford, which I think will happen it will happen at some point, because I just don't see Hodgson surviving the season. I think there's a lot of factors. I think a lot of the fan base has lost hope in him. I'd rather take the loss against Brentford, or even a draw, because I think a draw could get him sacked as well, and then start fresh again, because I feel like if it's not against Brentford, it will happen against Sheffield United or another team, or against Brighton in February. I'd rather do it now, for the reason I listed at the start of the show. The fact that we got a January transfer window, the fact that we haven't got that many games coming up, and we got a bit of a break where a new manager can come in, have a bit of time to work with the squad and, exactly get them playing how he wants to play. So for them 2 reasons, I think right now it makes the most logical sense. But for you, AJ, if it means, if we win, that Roy stays beyond January, would you prefer that?
No, fuck that. I never want to see my team lose. I don't care. I'm a sore loser. I hate seeing Palace lose.
So you would prefer that we win? I don't want to see my team lose. That's why I said I'll take a draw. That's why I said I'll take a draw.
I'll tell you what, right? Hypothetical, right? We win. Roy celebrates. He drops. He breaks his hip. Next thing you know, he can't continue as the manager, and we bring somebody in anyway.
But
bro, I don't care. Like, I just want my team to win. I don't care. Okay. And at the end of the day, bro,
I don't want my team to lose. It's just a situation. Would you take a win on Saturday and Hodgson stays beyond January, or take a loss and he gets sacked after? You haven't been a fan of Hodgson, but so you would just take the win and keep him till beyond January then?
Bro, I never want to see my team lose. Unlike some fans on this channel,
I don't want to see my team lose as well, but I'm thinking logically, because I know in this situation in February you'll be even more pissed off than you are right now, and that's because of that.
You're right.
So I'm thinking logically.
You're right, but you did right, which I personally think is a dangerous thing. You turn around and said, "It's only what difference is a point or 2 going to make, bro?" In April, that could be a very different conversation.
You said I'll take a draw. I'll take a draw because I think a draw literally gets him sacked. I don't want my team to lose.
Give my 3 points, bro. Anything to get away, dangle away from that relegation zone. I don't want it. I will never take a loss. Never.
Okay, let me put it like this then. So that's fair. That's how you think. But if we lose this game, or if we win this game and then we end up losing our next 5, whereas a new manager comes in and we end up winning 3 games rather than 1 game in 5, then how many points do you get there? Do you not get more points? So basically, what I'm saying is, that's also fair. You don't want your team to win, but I'm looking at the logics and what's going on so far this season. We've got 1 win at home since September. We've got 1 win since away from home since November, 4th of November. We're about to enter January in about 2 months. Now, I don't think a win against Brentford is going to change our fortunes, and we can't have a 1 win in every 2 months. So for me, I think it's going to happen anyways. And in this situation, would I want Hodgson sacked? Yes, I do. So whatever that gets him sacked. Unfortunately, that's what happened.
We might have to agree to disagree on that one, bro. We might have to agree to disagree on that one because
I'll take the draw.
Nah, bro, I'll never want my team to lose ever.
Yeah, exactly. Matthew Doyle, just with all due respect, just sharp, man. You've just been talking rubbish. Tim saying never root for a loss. Yeah, I agree, Tim. I get where you come from. Bloomslang saying you play to win the game, sure. No one should ever hope to lose. Win and sack him. This is the best situation. End on 3 points. Another perfect ending, sort of. If you discount, that's what I'm saying is interesting because we're not going to have this opportunity again. Because if we win this, yeah, there you go, you're off. If we win this, then literally, it come end of January, and yeah, we're basically if we're in the same situation as we are, and we end up losing games in late January, then we're pissed because the new manager doesn't have time to work as he does now. But once again, you're not. Once again, I hope this situation happens for your sake. But in February, you would get grilled because you're not.
You're an agent, bro.
I will cook you to the daylight. Like I would cook you because, as I'm explaining, in February when we have games coming up against Brighton, Everton, etc., and there's no more break, there's no more January transfer window, and a new manager comes in, and he's not happy with 1 or 2 players, then you would get cooked. You know, as Patrick says.
Hashtag D out.
Fair enough. But you're the one that won Hodgson now, and all of a sudden now you.
Hey, I do, mate. I do more than anything, but bro, never take the L, bro.
Personally, I think even if we win, he needs to go. Like,
yeah, facts, big facts.
That's how it is, and I hope that we win and he goes like that because I think that'd be the best case scenario. I hate that he's in this position. But I just don't see how he survives. I just don't see it. That's the most unfortunate thing. So I think it's going to happen. Maybe not in this game, then in about a few games. So we just have to firm it. It's unfortunate, but see Patch put him in this position, or the club put him in this position. He should have left on a high after 10 games, and we should have called it a day like this. But yeah, hopefully, in the best case scenario, hopefully we win every game. We hopefully beat Brentford and beat Everton and manage to get a point against Arsenal. I think that would be very positive. But that's a massive if, you get it. And so far, from what I've seen, I don't think that's going to be happening. David saying, stop with this sack, Roy. It won't change until a change at the top. We could be in a much worse position with a different manager.
I disagree on such a no. In fact, no. Let me be fair to what David just said there. The problem you've got with that, David, is it is always an easier scenario to do a quick fix and change the manager. It's not, sacking a manager, bringing in a new manager in the Premier League is not astronomically exclusive to us, and more importantly, it's not something. It's something that happens with every Premier League club. When results don't go your way, you make changes in the management and obviously hope to achieve and change things. I don't need to educate man on that stuff, but hear me out. Whereas getting rid of an owner who has a golden share, which if I bought out tomorrow, put it this way, if I gave Steve Parish £200 million for his shares tomorrow to buy his shares of Crystal Palace, he doesn't even have a big enough percentage for me to be a majority shareholder in that company. So then you've got to then deal with Harris and or Blitzer, probably both of them. And then you've probably got to deal with the Texer thing. The problem is, and Tim brought up some fantastic points about ownership yesterday, which I 100% agree with to pretty much all of it. It's not easy, and you always have to be wary of the greener grass on the other side of things and the dangers that come with just selling your ownership to the guy that just looks or appears to have larger money. There is always something sinister at play. At least with Steve Parish, he's the devil that we know. Does that mean I'm not Steve Parish out? Not at all. But it is obviously a far easier situation and scenario to be able to change a manager rather than trying to change ownership, because to change ownership and get years of change, you either need to get very lucky and find the right investor, and the right investor comes along and buys your club, i.e. like a Newcastle, Chelsea, etc., or you have to hound them out, which is by no mean feat, even if you ironically ask a Newcastle fan or any other those kind of clubs how easy that is to get rid of owner. It just ain't going to happen. So we can only speak on what can potentially change respectfully overnight. So I hear what you're saying, David, and I hear what all these Parish out guys are saying, but the chances of you getting rid of Steve Parish rather than getting rid of Roy and changing things up at that level, you're not going to win. You just can't. Steve Parish ain't going to sell this club or sell his shares to this club until he's ready or he is financially finished. Because, you know, you got to look at it this way. You walk down you go outside your house, your neighbor's got a brand new BMW. You can't force him to sell that BMW until he's ready to sell that BMW. You might not like the color of it. You might hate the way it looks outside on the street, but you can't make a man sell his things, you know? You cannot make a man sell his assets. So we have to be a little bit
change the manager because I think the manager situation is a bit.
That's short-term
you have to consider it. But I do agree with David, though. I mean, I said it yesterday as well. I think we'll be on this. West Ham scored. I'm happy for West Ham. You know, hey, is it actually happened, Wolves? Oh yeah, West Ham beating Arsenal. Hey, I'm actually happy about that.
Dee, what are you doing, bro? All this, you're saying some sus things on the stream today, bro. Like, what is going on?
What?
I'm a bit worried, bro. Celebrating West Ham winning.
West Ham. What's going on?
Hashtag the
West Ham scores. Yeah, they're only 5 points off fifth. That's a game. But anyways, forget about West Ham. Yeah, when it comes to the owners, how I see it is there needs to be some kind of change, 100%. But I think in short term, the manager change should happen. But I think this cycle will keep going on until there's change at the top. So I do agree with David partially there, but I do think when you're 3 points off the drop, then I think you still have to consider the manager because I think we have got some good players. It's not like we've got bad players. It's a case of can another manager get the most out of these players? And I think they can. I think when you talk about Gay, Anderson, Eze, Elise, etc., there are some quality players there. And we just maybe might need fresh ideas to get the best out of them players to keep us up in the short term. But I do agree about the owners anyways. But look, I went on longer than expected. If you're just joining us now, make sure to watch the start of the show after we end as we talk about all the rumors and the reports that's been coming out. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We should be back more than likely tomorrow or 100% after the Brentford game. I know that for sure. Hopefully, we manage to get a positive result as well as a bit of consistency, but it's not going to happen though. I just don't see it happening. I can see a draw, in all honesty. But let's see. Maybe there will be some changes. Thanks to AJ. Thanks to every single one of you that's joining us live. And until next time, up the pads.